Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Community Information Meeting about the draft vision framework for the Palm District Planning. My name is Valerie Harris, and I'm with the City of Austin Communications and Public Information Office. And I'm the Zoom administrator and production lead for tonight's meeting. This will be a multilingual event, so everyone will need to select a language to participate, even if your chosen language is English. Next slide, please. From a desktop or laptop computer, click the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred language. From a phone or tablet, click the three dots, select Language Interpretation, choose your preferred language, and press Done. Now that you've joined your designated channel, you will hear the interpreter's voice clearly with the original audio in the background. Just give me a moment, Ruben, you can go back to the first slide. There you go. Since now that you're in your designated language channel, you will hear the interpreter's voice with the original audio in the background. To only hear the interpreter, you can select Mute Original Audio, and you'll only hear the interpreter. If you're in the English channel, you will continue to hear the original audio at the standard volume. And now I'll have George repeat these instructions in Spanish.
Thank you, Valerie. Bienvenido a la reunión de información de la comunidad sobre la versión preliminar del marco de visión de la iniciativa de planificación del Distrito Palm. Mi nombre es Jorge Ortega y yo ayudará a Valerie Harris esta noche. Para este evento multilingüe, todos deben de seleccionar un idioma para participar. Si están en sus computadoras, presionen el icono del globo en la parte de abajo de sus pantallas. Si están en sus teléfonos o tabletas, hagan clic en los tres puntitos, seleccionen interpretación de idiomas y su idioma preferido y presione listo. Esta activará la interpretación simultánea y oirá la voz de intérprete con el audio original del fondo. Gracias.
Thanks, George. So we also have on-screen live captioning, and to view this, click the CC icon on the toolbar below. If you're on a mobile device, you may need to click the three dots to open the menu bar further. If at any time you need assistance, you may send a direct message to the production team, me or George, and we will do our best to respond right away. Drop us a note to ask for help if you miss any of these instructions, and we can take care of that for you. Thanks so much for your attention to these instructions. Now, please allow me to pass the mic to Alicia Lane, the facilitator for this virtual meeting. Alicia currently serves as the Community Engagement Specialist for the Housing and Planning Department. Thanks for facilitating tonight's discussion, Alicia. This meeting is now yours.
Great, thank you, Valerie. I am very excited to see our turnout, and I want to thank everyone again for coming to this virtual meeting for such an important topic. Sorry, I need to hit mute on something. So I'm going to briefly go over our agenda. So for our agenda, we have our welcome, which we just finished, we will then go into our meeting logistics and housekeeping. We'll then have a presentation from staff, go over next steps, and then our question and answer section of the meeting. So first, some housekeeping. So the goal for today's informational webinar is for the community to learn about the draft vision framework and ask questions. Beyond this meeting, there will be several opportunities for the public to provide input and feedback. And as a result, you will see that today's Zoom meeting is set up as a webinar. So what does that mean? That means that this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on the Speak Up Austin project page. That also means that our mics and cameras are enabled for our speakers only. This is to improve streaming quality and ease of viewing, and that's why only the speakers' cameras are enabled. All attendees will be, all speakers will be able to mute and unmute their mics. So again, this helps ensure a smooth meeting. I know we've all been in meetings where speakers start buffering, and we're trying to avoid that. And again, there will be several opportunities for the public to provide input and direct feedback, which we'll touch on later in this presentation. Questions will be submitted through the Q&A widget and answered during the question and answer portion of this meeting. I encourage you to place your questions, in the Q&A widget. Staff will review your questions and consolidate them to include them in the Q&A portion of the agenda. If you have audio issues, I encourage you to put it in the chat. That way we can help you, or call in. When you registered for this meeting, you were also given a telephone number, and so you can call in that way if needed. So I know that was a lot of instructions, but again, we want to make sure that we have a smooth meeting with you all. So I'm now going to go into our meeting agreements. These are agreements that are for everyone. They're for staff as well. They are to stay on point and on time, listen with an open mind, criticize the topic, not the person, commit to learning, not debating, be respectful of all participants and the process, value the strength of diverse input, ask clarifying questions if you don't understand, avoid blame, speculation, inflammatory language, and staff reserves the right to remove offenders from the meeting. So typically what that means for us is that we want this to be a safe space for everyone. So again, these are meeting agreements that we have for the public, but also for staff as well, equal respect. So thank you so much for your attention to all of these announcements. And with that, I will hand the mic over to Stevie to begin our presentation.
Thank you, Alicia, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking time to be with us this evening. I'm Stevie Greathouse. I'm a division manager with the city's Housing and Planning Department and the project lead for the Palm District Planning Initiative. During tonight's presentation, we will be providing a brief overview of the planning process, sharing with you what we heard from community during the visioning phase of this project, presenting the draft vision framework that staff has developed based on what we've and then we will talk a bit about next tonight's presentation. As Alicia mentioned, we will be opening it up to questions for the project team. The goal of the Palm District Planning Initiative is to engage stakeholders and the public to develop a shared vision for an area of Eastern Downtown that has a rich history and that we know is evolving quickly. The Palm District study area is generally bounded by 15th Street to the north, I-35 on the east, Lady Bird Lake on the south, and Trinity Street on the west. This area of downtown is ground zero for a number of significant public investments over the years ahead, including reconstruction of IH-35, as well as implementation of the Project Connect transit system. In addition to initiating a planning process, the resolution that was adopted by City Council in 2019 provided direction on several additional items that are moving forward independently. These items include negotiation related to the future of the Palm School site, instructions related to the Rainy Street District Fund, instructions to work towards creating a 5th Street Mexican-American Heritage Corridor, as well as direction to explore future expansion of the convention center. The process is informed by and will inform the other work that is referenced in the resolution. We will evaluate whether our planning effort is successful based on the extent to which it achieves community benefits in an equitable manner. Goals include creating a safe, welcoming place, preserving and interpreting history, enhancing educational and cultural assets, providing economic benefits, increasing access to housing, improving mobility and access, as well as improving access to nature and supporting an equitable, sustainable future. This planning process is supported primarily by staff within the City of Austin Housing and Planning Department, but we have also received significant support and coordination from a host of additional city departments who are undertaking major work in the area. There are a number of key stakeholders with interests in this area who have been involved in the process. I wanted to particularly acknowledge our fairly close partnerships with the Downtown Austin Alliance, Waterloo Greenway, Travis County, Capital Metro, and the American Institute of Architects. In addition, we have benefited from the support of a consultant, Marta Cotera, who has brought her immense context to this project and has helped us to engage and elevate the voices of East Austin communities, past and present. Over the last 12 months, we have worked to engage stakeholders, understand existing conditions, support coordination of related initiatives, and begin to develop a shared vision for the district that builds on the work already underway. We have previously released an existing conditions report as well as a listening report, and we released the draft vision work at the end of February. Over the next several months, we will be seeking feedback on the draft vision framework and diving into an analysis of options and detailed planning work. This will ultimately lead to development of a small area plan for the Palm District and an amendment to the Downtown Austin plan. And we hope to present the draft plan to the public and eventually to City Council later this summer. We're now going to share a brief video that provides an overview of the district as well as the draft vision framework for the area. And at the conclusion of the video, my colleague Jesse Gutierrez will dive into a bit more detail about what we heard through our various engagement channels over the last year. Really appreciate y'all being here this evening, and I will be speaking to you again a little bit later in this presentation.
A cultural touchstone for Austin's Mexican-American community and a window into Austin's past. At night, the area along Red River transforms into the heart of Austin's world-famous live music scene. To the north, a medical innovation district is beginning to emerge around the Dell Seaton Medical Center. To the south, a new high-rise neighborhood is being built, and the Rainy Street Entertainment District continues to draw crowds. Improvements are underway to create the Waterloo Greenway, a system of parks and trails that will bring the Austin community together along Waller Creek to Lady Bird Lake. Within this relatively small slice of downtown, there are several significant anticipated public investments that include the reconstruction of I-35, the implementation of the Project Connect transit system, and implementation of the Waterloo Greenway. Yet, as development continues, the area is at risk of losing historical resources and of continuing to lose the businesses and cultural resources that contribute to its identity and vibrancy. Over the years, the district has seen waves of settlement and displacement, much of which has been driven by public policy decision-making. Central to the study area is the Palm School, which served as a focal point for Austin's Mexican-American community for more than half a century. The Rainey Street neighborhood was once a tight-knit Mexican-American community with strong connections to East Austin. Before it became I-35, East Avenue was a broad boulevard lined with houses, schools, shops, and restaurants. The goal of the Palm District Planning Initiative is to engage stakeholders and the public to develop a shared vision for this quickly evolving part of downtown. In summer and fall of 2021, the City of Austin engaged community stakeholders to gather ideas on the future of the Palm District. From those ideas came the draft vision framework, which has 4 central themes: culture, inclusive growth, connections, and nature. The Palm District will become a cultural destination that celebrates its multicultural and musical history. Community assets like the Red River Cultural District and Mexican American heritage sites will be supported and expanded. The Palm District will provide a prosperous future for long-standing and new residents. New and established businesses will thrive along with the district's cultural and historical institutions. All of this will enhance the entertainment, live music, tourism, convention, and innovation sectors of the local economy. Physical and cultural connections will be strengthened within the Palm District, ensuring a relationship with nearby neighborhoods and communities. The natural environment within the district will be nurtured by integrating green infrastructure enhancements and by preserving and restoring existing natural and open spaces. Following this vision phase, community engagement will continue throughout the planning process with the goal of presenting a draft plan to the community by summer or fall of 2022.
Dallas is
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Jesse Gutierrez, Senior Planner with the Housing and Planning Department, and this is what we heard. Hopefully you can hear me. During the visioning phase of the planning process, there were several ways and opportunities for the public and stakeholders to provide their input, and we'll be diving deeper into a few of these. There's the Speak Up Austin page, which has been visited over 3,500 times, an initial online survey that received 337 responses. We had over 151 people attend one of 2 visioning forums. Our community-based consultant team reached out to East Austin thought leaders and community members, which resulted in recommendations from over 75 individuals and organizations. 60 individuals and organizations also participated in events hosted by the American Institute of Architects. And finally, we had an online interactive map on which we received 23 site-specific recommendations. And now some of what we heard from the survey and through the visioning forums. Through our online survey, we heard from many who have historic ties to the district. 55% of survey respondents identified as Hispanic or Latinx, 39% of respondents identified as white. 55% of respondents were women, and about 50% of respondents were under the age of 44. Now we'll move on to some survey responses and results. This initial survey was up on the Speak Up Austin webpage, project page from May to November of 2021. The survey was available in both English and Spanish. The survey was meant to capture initial impressions of how people interact with and think about the Palm District. We chose to segment these survey responses to highlight Hispanic and Latinx experiences, a community we know that has deep cultural ties to this area. When asked how to best describe the Palm District, for top answers, most people saw the district as a cultural hub, a place to socialize, and a natural oasis in the middle of the city. Hispanic and Latinx participants, in addition to that, shared that the Palm District provided a connection to family history. Top reasons for people visiting the Palm District were to visit restaurants, bars, and entertainment. A majority of our Hispanic and Latinx respondents shared that attending events at the MIS Barrientos Mexican American Cultural Center was one of their primary reasons for visiting the district. Favorite aspects of the district were historic and cultural resources, walkability, and nightlife and entertainment. Top favorite aspects of the district for Hispanic and Latinx respondents were historic and cultural resources, family-friendly events, and special events and festivals. And least favorite aspects of the district were cleanliness, personal safety, and public parking. Hispanic and Latinx respondents said that their least favorite aspects of the district were public parking first, followed by personal safety, and then cleanliness. Oops, I think maybe we lost slideshow for a second. We should be on slide 20 after those bar graphs. Perfect. We also received a wealth of insight through the detailed responses to open-ended questions in that survey. All of the responses to these open-ended questions are also included in our listening report, which can be found once again in the Speak Up Austin Palm District Planning Process project page. And this is a quote from one respondent expressing a desire for sites in the district to serve multiple public purposes. And we received many personal accounts of family connections to the area, emphasizing the importance of celebrating and preserving cultural landmarks and places within the district. So we held 2 visioning forums in June of 2021. From those forum conversations, we received over 372 comments. This word cloud is a visual representation of those ideas and subjects that came up during those conversations. Key words from those discussions include opportunity, history, culture, people, creek, spaces, and of course, sites found in the district, such as Rainy Street. And making this planning process, making sure that this planning process engaged the historic residents of the area is a top priority for our team. And our engagement consultant, Martha Cotera, and her team reached out to a variety of key organizations and individuals representing the East Austin Mexican American community and those communities with cultural ties to the district. Key partner organizations are listed here on the next slide. Yes, and include La Raza Roundtable, Greater Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Tejano Democrats, Palm School alumni, various cultural and arts institutes in the area, La Peña Arts, Mexicarte, obviously the MIS Barrientos Mexican American Cultural Center, Café con Letras, Lace Poder, and several others. The recommendations that came out of these focus group discussions and conversations are shared in detail in the listening report, which can be found on the Speak Up Austin project page. The East Austin community shared a lot of similar concerns and desires as our overall engaged stakeholder groups, but they did focus more on a desire to develop Palm School and Palm Park at the same time, making space for cultural programming that supports the Mexican American community, the desire to tell a story and history of the Rainy Street neighborhood, an interest in supporting the development of a Mexican American heritage corridor, and a desire to see Mexican American cultural aspects of the district elevated so that the district becomes a destination for cultural events. Another great round of input and recommendations came out of events led by the American Institute of Architects. In 2019, the Housing and Planning Department successfully applied for assistance from the American Institute of Architects Communities by Design program. In early 2020, a team of AIA volunteers came to visit the city of Austin to get a better sense of the Palm District and its surroundings. Shortly thereafter, due to the worldwide pandemic, our coordination efforts with the AIA and all of our engagement activities actually were forced to move to these types of virtual spaces. The AIA team took part and listened to the conversations that were had during our community and stakeholder visioning forums that were held in June. Soon after that, in July, an AIA assembled team of experts from around the country working pro bono facilitated a series of virtual activities with local stakeholders, which led to the release of the Aia Report and Recommendations. The AIA team had many recommendations. Key ideas that came from that report include being very intentional with culture and placemaking through public art, leveraging controlled sites to achieve the overall district vision. And one key recommendation that stood out to us was to make it happen, stressing the importance of implementation and implementation strategies. And now I will turn it over to my colleague, Susan Watkins.
Thank you, Jesse. The information Jesse just presented on what we've heard was coupled with the existing conditions analysis to form the basis for the draft vision framework that's been released. This is a draft, and we look forward to receiving lots of feedback on the framework before evaluating future scenarios and developing a detailed plan for how we get there. The overarching vision for the district is that it become a vibrant, historic hub of downtown where the past is honored, culture is celebrated, and the future is shaped. The vision framework identified 4 themes: inclusive growth, culture, connection, and nature. Each theme is explained further by broad outcome statements listed in the document, as well as key opportunities shown on a map for each theme. We'll go over each theme in the next slides. The first element that the vision looks at is ensuring that growth in the district will provide a prosperous future for longtime and recent residents and established and new businesses. Key opportunities to support this element that are shown on the map on the right-hand side here include the Innovation District, Convention Center, and the future of the APD headquarters site. The second element of the vision includes ensuring that the district becomes a cultural destination that celebrates its multicultural heritage. Key opportunities here include the Red River Cultural District, the Moody Amphitheater at Waterloo Park, Symphony Square, Palm School, Rainy Street, and the ESB Mexican American Cultural Center, as well as Palm Park, 6th Street, and the Convention Center. The third element of the vision calls for strengthening the physical, cultural, and social connections within downtown and between East Austin and downtown. Key opportunities include the reconstruction of Interstate 35, implementation of Project Connect, implementation of trails along the Waterloo Greenway, and improvements to accessibility throughout the district. The fourth element calls for preserving and enhancing the natural environment by restoring existing natural and open spaces and pursuing high standards of sustainable design and development with a focus on green infrastructure. Key opportunities include Waterloo Greenway, Palm Park, Brush Square, and the Lakeshore, but also include private development and public improvements throughout the district. The four themes overlay to create a unified vision for this dynamic place and highlight key placemaking and placekeeping opportunities. So this map combines the four maps that we just saw. And this and the other maps can be viewed on the Speak Up page to examine the locations of the key opportunities that were identified. Included in the draft vision framework are over 50 desired outcomes across the four themes. The outcomes were developed from input from many stakeholders in the district. These initial broad statements describe more about what is meant by each theme of the vision. The full set of outcomes by vision element is located on the Speak Up Austin page. In the next few months, we'll drill down into more details about how to achieve these outcomes. I'm now going to turn the presentation back over to Stevie Greathouse, who will talk about next steps and how you can provide feedback.
Thank you, Susan. And before I do that, I just want to confirm, can folks hear now? I know there was my volume during the beginning of the presentation. Thank you. Excellent. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of next steps and where we go from here, and then turn it back over to Alicia to facilitate the question and answer portion of the agenda. So where are we going from here? It's really important to note and emphasize that the draft vision framework is aspirational. We will be doing detailed planning work over the months ahead to identify what it would take to achieve the vision. Implementation can and will build on what is already happening in the district, but will require additional public and private resources. The city can't do this work alone, so we look forward to the partnerships to take the next steps to achieve the vision. And we really, really want to hear from you and from the broader community and stakeholders. Does the vision framework reflect what we heard over the last few months? Did we miss things as we were listening over the last few months? We really want to hear from you and look forward to receiving your feedback to help refine this vision framework and make sure that the plan that we are building is built on the right foundation. The website, you can review the draft vision framework in more detail, watch the video again, and access a feedback survey as well as other materials, including the listening report that provides a summary of the input and involvement that we've done over months that Jesse provided an overview of. At this stage, the community is being asked whether we accurately captured what we heard during the listening phase and whether that input that we received is reflected in the vision. Over the next several months, staff will reach out to key stakeholders and work on detailed planning and analysis supporting the vision, analyze alternative future scenarios with a goal of delivering a draft small area plan by summer of 2022. This concludes our presentation for today's event. Thank you all so much for your attendance. And I'm going to turn it back over to Alicia Lane, who will facilitate a question and answer session.
Thank you, Stevie. So at this time, I will invite our panelists to turn their cameras on if able. That way we can get into our Q&A part of this evening. And we can go over to the next slide that just has a little reminder, thank you, of how to get the Q&A. So please remember, if you have any questions, we invite you to put them in the Q&A widget. It's most likely at the bottom of your screen, and that's how we will be taking your questions. So if you have any questions, if you've been utilizing the chat for those, again, I encourage you to put them in the Q&A widget. So I'm going to actually let folks take a few seconds. If there's any questions that came up during the presentation, if you had time to look through the framework, maybe even before this evening, and some questions came to mind, this is definitely your time to ask them. So I'll give us a few seconds and then we'll jump right in. I will say also use the chat if you're having a hard time finding the Q&A for any reason, and we can help you navigate to that as well. Okay, wonderful. I do see some coming through. Thank you. So again, this is your time to ask staff questions that you may have. We also have the speak up page where after today, if new questions come to mind, you have that option as well. But today, while we have staff, we want to make sure that we can give you as much information as possible. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read our first question for staff, for either of you who can answer this question. I will also say that as we get questions, if there are questions that staff might need to do additional research, or if your inquiry is very specific, we can answer that question offline. All of the questions submitted today will be put on our Speak Up page. So again, if you hear a great answer, you didn't have a chance to jot it down, that's okay. Again, this meeting is recorded and all questions and answers will be on our Speak Up page. Very quick disclaimer. So first question for staff. What is the preliminary plan for Palm School and other historic buildings that have been identified? And as you're answering, if we can be cognizant of our Spanish channel and interpreters who are trying to interpret your answers as well. So again, what is the preliminary plan for Palm School and other historic buildings that have been identified?
Sure, and I can kind of start an answer on that question and then toss a little bit of the answer over to my colleague, Susan Watkins. So we recognize and want to make it very clear that the Palm School site is not a site that is owned by the city of Austin, and the future of that site is really going to be determined by the community in partnership with Travis County, who currently owns the site. The county has done work looking at sort of options for the future of the site. We're going to continue to have a robust community-wide conversation about how we would move forward and what the actual specifics are going to look like on that site moving forward. I can say that during the visioning phase of this work and what we heard from the community, we had a range of community input that ranged all the way from making sure to be able to use that site for multiple purposes, all the way up to making sure to preserve it kind of exactly as it is today. So we got a range of input from the public. The future is really going to be determined by all of this kind of working in communication together with our continued ongoing fantastic partnership with Travis County. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan to kind of address what is actually in the sort of aspirational vision document related to kind of the hopes and dreams and what we got out of the community input for the future of the site.
Thank you, Stevie. Definitely want to reiterate that nothing has been decided at this point, and the vision document really is about the goals of how the district will look and feel. One of a lot of the input that we received that Jesse went over is that the historic nature of the district and the cultural aspects of the district are very important to both preserve and enhance for the future. And so as we move forward, we know that that is something that that looks like for success of the plan is to make sure that that history and culture is preserved and elevated and enhanced. And so more details will be coming, and hopefully we will get that input from the community in the further planning processes.
Great, thank you. So our next question. So on the equity-based goals of your presentation, you mentioned that one of the goals is to increase access to housing. Can you please elaborate on that? Where specifically is this extra housing going to be constructed? And how will you minimize gentrification? So again, can you elaborate on the goal to increase housing? Where specifically is this extra housing going to be constructed? And how will you minimize gentrification?
Sure. I will attempt that one, and then hopefully my colleagues can provide additional feedback that they may have as well. As we sort of look at the vision of the district, part of it is really preserving the assets that are there now. So there is existing subsidized affordable housing in the district. There is an existing continuum of care services for our neighbors experiencing homelessness in the district, and really sort of working to figure out how to move forward and maintain the affordability and the services to folks that are there now related to housing. But in addition, there are also opportunities, both in terms of new development that will come into the district and how we regulate that new development. There is a downtown density bonus program that I may also ask Jorge Ruslan if he is no longer here, never mind. So we have a downtown density bonus program that incentivizes he is still here, incentivizes provision of affordable housing in the district now that we could end up recommending modifications to as a result of this project. And then there are publicly owned opportunity sites, including the Austin Police Department headquarters, that the vision is that one day that site will be serving different uses, and that will be designed to kind of look at those different uses. I guess since Jorge, I know you are on kind of a short time this evening, so if you want to share any other observations related to the downtown density bonus program particularly, and then I'll let Susan talk a little bit about the APD headquarters site.
Thank you, Stevie, appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. Jorge Ruslan, Division Manager over Zoning and Urban Design, and I am the Urban Design Lead on this project, and we are working in collaboration with the City Council to carefully calibrate development bonus fees for density bonus projects in the area that would hopefully further incentivize affordable housing contributions and on-site provision of on-site units for some of these projects that are emerging. That would be through the planning phase that we would collaborate with this project as well, to be able to sync up those opportunities for the district and surrounding the district. Thank you, Stevie.
Yeah, thank you. And Susan got to participate in kind of a cool visioning effort happening outside of the bounds of the city that the Urban Land Institute sponsored, related to the APD headquarters site, just in terms of kind of thinking outside the box on what could potentially happen on that site in the future, and how that relates to housing. So I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit, Susan.
Yeah, that was a kind of a competition. They called it the Battle of the Plans. And a few groups came together with a perspective, what it might look like and part of that had financial components to it. So how would this be financed if they reimagined the APD headquarters to include housing, to include space for music or art studios, that kind of thing. And so it was very neat to see the different ideas, but it was just potential opportunities. But I think the ULI site still has those available if, and we can put links to that.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, I'm going to move on to our next question, and then a reminder for panelists, if we can try to pace our answers as we have the interpreters interpreting as fast as they can. So we have a next question. The question is, at what point will more specific recommendations be acknowledged and addressed? For example, will there be a recommendation for a super administrative agency for the district, especially to manage TIF/sales tax concerns for the district, and to guide the specific recommendations regarding Palm Park? I'll read that again. At what point will more specific recommendations be acknowledged and addressed, the first part, such as recommendation for a super administrative agency for the district, especially to manage TIF/sales tax concerns for the district, and to guide the specific recommendations regarding Palm Park?
Sure, thank you. The question of when more specific guidance will be provided, the answer to that one is simpler than the answer to kind of the more specific questions that are embedded in that overall question. We will, as we move forward to develop the actual draft plan that will be presented later this year into the summer, that plan would identify specific actions and recommendations that need to happen in order to make the vision real. So at that, what we're looking for in terms of feedback on the draft vision framework is really, did we get the overall list of desired outcomes for the district right? And then when we go into the plan phase, the question will be, here are the outcomes that we are going to be moving towards and the steps that we would recommend be taken to get towards those outcomes. Some of the items on that list, including kind of future governance of the district, could definitely be included in detailed recommendations that are included in the plan. Some of the items could be additionally analyzed between now and developing the draft plan and end up not being recommended in the plan for one reason or another. I will say that the kind of reference to the TIF district, which is tax increment finance, this area is already covered by a tax increment finance district that supports Waller Creek. So that may not be a recommendation that moves forward, because that TIF, tax increment finance, or tax increment reinvestment zone, as they're also known, already exists in the district, and there's not capacity to create another one. But in general, what you can expect to see in the draft vision framework that we're asking for folks to review right now is the desired outcomes based on what we heard from the community. And then we would be working with stakeholders to develop more detailed plans for how we get there. And those more specific details would be included in the draft of the plan to the public and city council this summer. Jesse and Susan, I don't know if either of you want to add anything to that. If not, that's okay also. Hopefully that answered the question.
Great, thank you. So we have another question that came through. So I'll pose this to you if you do have the answer. So it says, our Mexican American community noticed recently that the city has placed temporary signage depicting the newly created 5th Street Mexican American Heritage Corridor. Are there plans for a formal grand opening ceremony? What city department or organization, if you know, will be responsible for managing this initiative? And how do Native, Latino / Mexican American Austinites and organizations get involved? And then lastly, is there a copy of the plan available for the public?
Sure. The work to look at potentially creating a Mexican American Heritage Corridor is being led by our partners within the Economic Development Department, who have been partnering with us on this work, and the effort that we're doing an overall vision framework for the district will feed into their work. The signage that has recently gone up is temporary interpretive signage or temporary directional signage for some of the resources in that potential future district that we were directed by City Council to provide sort of directional signage to those assets. My understanding, and we can get more specific contact information and a follow-up from our Economic Development Department after this meeting. But in general, my understanding is that they will be still to come doing work to look at the potential for district designation and to pull together stakeholders to do additional planning specifically related to a future Mexican American Heritage Corridor or Mexican American Heritage District. And based on the outcomes of that work, could be providing additional signage or modifying the signage. So the signage has gone up, which is great, giving folks instructions on how to get to some of those existing assets and kind of recognizing the importance of the history of that place. But at this point, a formal district has not been designated, and there's still additional work to be done led by our partners in economic development in partnership with the community to move towards next steps. But we'll definitely follow up in the kind of written Q&A after this to get folks contact information for how to get involved in that process and how to find out more.
Thank you. So I see another question that has come in. Okay, so this person has asked, why didn't the city and/or county commit support for an Indigenous cultural center and/or a Mexican American cultural corridor? For example, instead of offering an open-ended bureaucratic process of recommendations that places the public in the constant state of oblivious and confusion, where are the nodes of leadership where a clearer purpose can be defined? So again, why didn't the city and/or county commit support for an Indigenous cultural center or a Mexican American corridor?
Alicia, I think you got frozen.
So I will go ahead and attempt to answer the question while Alicia, okay, she's back. So thank you for that comment. I think, obviously this is a complex district, and the issues that we're dealing with and kind of working on a vision for within the context of the Palm District Planning Initiative is cross-cutting and crosses across cultural preservation and placekeeping. It crosses across transportation, and sort of the future of the place from a natural space and how we use the public assets in the place. It's by definition sort of broad and cross-cutting, and there's a lot of other more specific work happening in the district under our partners with the Economic Development Department and other city departments, as well as Travis County, to dive into the details of particular aspects, including the Mexican American Heritage Corridor, including kind of the future use of the Palm School site. And there's a lot of conversations happening with a lot of folks involved in them, and super confusing to the public. And I just want to acknowledge that. We do have sort of information as part of both the listening report as well as the existing conditions report that's up on the website that tries to kind of point in the direction of who's doing what. But I think that the best thing that we can do probably with this question is to provide some follow-up answers with sort of detailed communication points and touch points and a recommendation on who to directly reach out to for the particular items sort of being raised. And I know it's not easy, it's complex work, it's hard work. In planning, we oftentimes don't have the luxury of being able to like exercise complete control. We have, you know, a patchwork of public and private ownership and interests that we get to work as partners across, and it's complicated. So I just want to kind of honor the spirit of the question and recognize that, yes, it can be super confusing. And we will follow up after the session to provide, at least based on kind of the transparency and understanding of this project, where the best place is to kind of plug into to continue the conversations about the issues that were raised.
Thank you for that, Stevie. And I do want to acknowledge that the person who submitted that question agreed and said the situation is complex, and that's why we need resolute leadership on that. So I did want to acknowledge, thank you for that, that follow-up comment. We appreciate that. So we have about 2 minutes left allocated for Q&A. I don't see new questions, but again, I do want to commit to the 20 minutes that we allocated for questions. And so I'll ask you again to please put your questions in. If I glitch again, these questions will all be put on Speak Up Austin with the answers. So please forgive my technology. But again, we have about another minute left. If there's any last questions. And then again, if not, that is okay, because on Speak Up, we do have the ability for you to ask questions and get in touch with staff as well if needed. Okay, I'll take one more look.
We do have on the Speak Up page, I think we've already mentioned it, but just to mention again, there's a survey to kind of comment on the elements and if there's key opportunities that we might have missed or if something needs more explanation, there's opportunities to comment in that survey. There's a link there.
Thank you for that, Susan. And yes, our team member, Julie, for those of you who can look into the chat, is also putting the Speak Up Austin URL as well, if you'd like to take a look. Okay, so we're going to move on. Again, I want to thank everyone for questions. I know that it can be difficult to go to a meeting and get a lot of information and think of questions on the spot. So I definitely acknowledge that. And I thank you again just for submitting what you did submit. Okay, so we're going to move on. And I believe I'm passing this back to Stevie.
Great, and I think there may be slides coming for next steps and where we go from here. And I do, while we're waiting for the slides to load back up, just want to acknowledge everybody for taking the time out I know this stuff, it takes time, and it's taking time out of your evening. And I really kind of appreciate everybody taking that time. I also want to emphasize that we are definitely really and truly asking for feedback on the draft that we have presented, and that we look forward to receiving that feedback, and that if you have other questions following tonight, if you wake up in the middle of the night and think of a question, please do submit it via the Speak Up Austin webpage, and we will work to get the question answered. Ruben, do we have the last part of the presentation coming back up?
And let me see if I can share it as well. You might be having some technical difficulties like I did.
Yeah, I think the last one of these events that we had, like all three of us that were on the panel all had computers glitching out at once. So we are all very much looking forward to starting to have in-person events again.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. So how to get involved. As we've mentioned multiple times tonight, the Speak Up Austin page is really sort of the primary channel for all things related to the Palm District Planning Initiative. Next slide. That Speak Up Austin page is at www.speakupaustin.org/Palm District. On that page, you can review the draft vision framework in its entirety. Tonight, obviously, we were able to present a very high-level summary of the draft vision framework. You can take a survey that asks for your feedback on the draft vision framework, and then you can review other materials as well as add thoughts to the interactive map. I will acknowledge that one of the key materials that's available on the vision framework page, as well as the primary Speak Up Austin page, is that listening report that provides an overview of all of the engagement and input that we've received over the last multiple months on this project. And that's what we're really asking folks to let us know if we got it right with the draft vision framework based on the input that we have received. You can also, as I mentioned, ask questions via the Speak Up Austin webpage. We are also happy to come out and provide a more personalized organizational on the process. So feel free to send an email or communicate via the Speak Up page if you want to request an organizational briefing. And in addition to the Speak Up Austin page, we also have an email address for this project, which is palmdistrictplanning@austintexas.gov. Feel free to reach out to us via that email address, or you can reach out to the project using 311, or if you're someone that prefers plain old-fashioned mail, you can mail letters and input to Palm District Planning, care of the Housing and Planning Department. And with that, I just wanted to thank you all so much of your time. We look forward to receiving your feedback, and we look forward to moving into the next steps of this process in partnership with you. And I think, is anyone, I guess that's goodbye. That may be goodbye, or Alicia may be back to give the formal goodbye.
Yeah, thank you again, everyone. Like we mentioned, just give us a few days and the recording will be put on the Speak Up page as quickly as possible. Like staff mentioned, we really encourage you to look at the draft vision framework, to take the survey, and really just help amplify this effort. We want to make sure that as many residents and stakeholders know about this as possible. And so we really appreciate you coming out, and we appreciate you engaging with staff working on this moving forward. So yes, at that, that will be all. For our production lead, Valerie, do you mind closing us out?
Sure will. Thanks, everybody. I guess that we'll call it a night. Appreciate everyone's work on this project tonight, and we give you back your evening. Have a good night, everyone.